Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Kube Ambassador, former Kube Vanguard before my Gmail account got moved by the university to Microsoft 365, and I found out that that was tied to my YouTube, and guess what? So I have a new channel, and it's called the Kube Ambassador, because if you have a new channel, you might as well have a new name, right? So that's what happened. So this is the second episode, so I'm starting all over again. I don't have any. I think I have maybe one or two followers, and that's probably me in my own made up accounts, right? To increase the numbers. Nevertheless, you got to start again. You got to start again. You know, in life, you start again many times, and if you learn how to do that, then you just keep on going, right? Okay, so what's up this week? Well, this week, guess what? A new Kubernetes release is what's up, and let's take a look quickly. It's called Electrifying. So I don't know if they've hooked into the power grid or something, but if you go to the Kubernetes.dev page, you can get all the details. There are some changes. I mean, I went through it quickly. One of the is, again, it's not a minor issue if you're a developer, but the registry has changed. So the name of the registry, the actual URL has changed. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's in there. You can find it. So keep that in mind. Always go and look at this. Obviously, a lot of products like Kasten won't support this right away. Okay, it takes some time to test and whatnot. And but it's worth going through to see if there's anything fun and interesting in there. Okay, what are we going to talk about this week? This week we're going to talk about Longhorn. Okay, Longhorn, what's that? Is it cowboy ranch? No. Well, it is in a way because Rancher makes it. It's storage. Okay, it's storage for Kubernetes. And so I'm playing with it a bit. And I decided to show you how much fun it is. I'm not going to go into details of how to install it because they're right here on the Longhorn page. So longhorn.io, and you can find all sorts of information. Now, what I like about it, it's developed by originally developed by Rancher, means they must have gone on their own little path, and it's an incubating project. Okay, so the CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, have these incubating projects, and then they graduate, and then whatever. So it's incubating. Okay. But it's very promising. And what I like about it is once you set it up, it's got a great, really neat graphical interface. So there it is. This is the exposed Longhorn on my little K3S cluster that I created. And so as you can see here, I've got 3 worker nodes. And these are the nodes that I have installed this to. And what I'm going to do today is just show a simple addition of a disk, okay? Because it's not a huge topic. Now, there's backup there. Speaking of backup, there seems to be a problem with Kasten. I installed Kasten and the snapshotting is not working. Okay, it's not just Kasten. Snapshotting wasn't working at all. I'm digging into that to find out what the problem is. I found already some notes about it. Some people with some issues on the GitHub saying, "Hey, this isn't working." So they're probably working on that. But they have their own little backup here. I haven't used it yet. Looking at its backup target URL, so I might get into that later. But of course, Kasten's always our backup of choice. Why? Because it's the best, the simplest, and the most fun. Nevertheless, let's take a look at this. So by default, now there are some prerequisites, by the way, and one of them is the iSCSI, Open iSCSI, and you'll find all that in here. If you go to the docs, and there are the quick installation notes, which I always go to first. Later, I do read all the documentation. I'm not lazy, but sometimes we just want to get the thing started and drive off on it, or ride off on it if you're on a bicycle. And so I did that. But it's pretty straightforward. Again, there are some dependencies there, and they're listed here somewhere. Important notes probably, perhaps not. But I know Open iSCSI is needed. Anyways, enough of that. Let's just show how we can add a disk to this. So go back to this instance. Okay, this is my instance. I actually have 4 nodes. This is K3S. I've got a control node, and then I have 3 worker nodes. Okay, and I'm only going to use the worker nodes. By default, it goes in and does an install on the var lib longhorn. Obviously, you don't want to use that. That's on your root directory default, and you can actually get rid of that afterwards. And I've already added a disk to my K3S worker, and we're going to go through that right now. There it is, disk 1, and it's a 400 gig. So let's go to the command line. We always love to go to the command line. It's always fun. And let's do this on worker node 2. So I have sudoed su-dash to become root. And let's do an fdisk -L to see what we have here. And lo and behold, we have dev sdb which is a 400 gig empty disk. So it's empty, it's got nothing on it, and it's got nothing in it, it's nothing. So we got to create something. So let's create a file system first of all. So make file system. We're going to use XFS because we like XFS. And we're just going to format that. So dev SDB. I'm not going to create a partition. I'm just going to format the entire disk. Okay. Off it goes. It's happy. Now, if you do a lot of Veeam, you'll know that XFS is the file system of choice for your Linux repositories. What's the reason why? Yes, you can make it immutable. You can make it immutable, and immutable is fun because hackers don't like it. Okay, so we have created the file system. So now let's go into our etc fstab, and let's add the disk. I'll just do a Shift A to get to the end of the line, and I'm just going to add this kind of sloppily. So what is it? SDB, I believe. Yes, and we're going to mount it on a partition called data. Let's call it data, and I'll have to make that partition, otherwise it won't be mounted. The file system is XFS. Okay, we're just going to use defaults and 0, 1. Okay. Next, we need to make the file system, or make that directory, that is. So make dir, and it's data. Boom. Now we should be able to do a mount -a, and it'll be mounted. There we see at the bottom there, SDB is mounted. Okay. All right. So we've got a disk, we've got a file system that's required by Longhorn. Let's go back now and let's add this. Okay. Whoa, where'd they go? Wrong place. Okay. So where did I add it to? Well, I added it to K3S Worker 2. Okay. So what you have to do, and depending on your screen size, you have to be careful. When you want to do any kind of editing like that in Longhorn, you have to go to the very end here, and it's not very obvious. And I have to admit, when I was doing this on my laptop screen, I didn't notice there was a little bar. It's a smaller screen. There was a little bar at the bottom. And I was poking all over the place to find a place where you could add a disk, and I couldn't find it until I finally decided not to be lazy and went to the documentation. And then I saw this little, what do they call it? Hamburger menu, whatever. And guess what? It's at the end here, and it was just off on the outside of the screen. So on this screen, luckily, we can see it. And there it is, edit, node, and disk. So we're going to go into that and see what we have here. All right, so it's found by default that var lib longhorn, which we don't want to use. We can remove it later. We want to add our new disk. And it's as simple as this. We're going to call it, well, it doesn't matter what. We'll call it disk 2. And the main thing is the path. Now I mounted on root data. And I'm going to make it schedule. So I'm able to schedule it. You have to tell it what size it is. So let's say it's 400. I think you can put 400. You don't have to give it any kind of leeway. You know, like in VMware, when you're adding a disk, sometimes you give it some leeway. I don't have to do that here. Let's save that and see what happens. Okay. No fireworks. That's good. You press the plus button on the left-hand side. And what this should do is show you. Okay, there it is. And it says unschedulable. Okay, that can't be good. So let's go back and see what happened. I suspect that perhaps you have to give it a bit of leeway space. Let's see if there's anything obviously wrong. So I tried to make it schedulable. Okay. It didn't like that. I think we need to give it some leeway. And maybe the superstar storage experts out there know why. It's probably some metadata involved or something. I don't know. But I bet you if I do this, if I just give it 10 gigs, maybe even 5, but I'll give it 10, it will be happy. Look at that. Intuition. I should buy a lottery ticket today. So schedulable. There it is. And here's the path. So it's going to give me 399. Well, it's interesting because I gave it 10 leeway and it still found this. Nevertheless, and it's ready to go. All right. So overall, if we go, and now I already did this, by the way, because I always do things in advance so I don't look stupid live. I did this with the worker 3. So let's just go to worker. Oh, that was worker 3. Oh, no, it isn't. There it is. So worker 3, you can see the same thing. It's got a disk. And worker 2 does as well now. Later, I'll add another one to worker 1. Now, Longhorn does need to have 3 nodes minimum. So 3 nodes with storage minimum. Otherwise, it's not going to work. I do have 1 workload running, an Nginx with a pfSense. So I believe I can actually find that somewhere here. If we go to volumes, boom, there we go. And I like this because it tells us right away it's healthy. And there's the PVC name. And we can say it's attached to Nginx, so it's my Nginx deployment, PVC, and it's on K3S Worker 1. So it's even telling me where it is. And look, you can some operations over here. Oh, we could delete it, detach it, do all sorts of horrible things, update replica count. So all sorts of stuff here. Now, I wouldn't do that because I don't know if it's going to, this is the storage doing this on its own. Still, nevertheless, you've got that recurring jobs. So this I think is new. I don't remember seeing that before. And then settings. So we'll go to general settings, see what it says. All sorts of stuff here. So right here, you've got the default data path, so you can change that. So I was telling you it goes default to var lib longhorn. It doesn't have to be that way. I could remove that and just put my data, for instance. And a lot of other extra information in here. Oh, look at that. Make XFS extent 4 file system. Well, I'm using XFS. It seems to be happy. Yeah, scheduling and whatnot. So there's a lot here, and they're adding more all the time. The last time I was in here, I didn't see all that. But nevertheless, it's a nice user interface. And I know people sometimes complain about Kubernetes not having user interfaces, and this gets people annoyed. So there you have it, Longhorn, just a short little introduction, and I believe that is going to be a lot of fun and very interesting. Okay, so that's my little demo for the week. In other news, there was a great, this week, Canada, East Canada Kubernetes meeting. Was it last week? Can't remember. It's all big. December is always a rush. I can't remember what week it was. But about WebAssembly. Okay, WebAssembly. It's really interesting. A fellow from Microsoft, of all things. And WebAssembly is like the new, well, it's been around for a while, but now it's really taking off. And this was WebAssembly in Kubernetes. And one of the things he showed was a container with one service or one deployment, and then a WebAssembly container. And that container was 2.9 megabytes, and the normal container was 210. Okay, that's all I understand about the technology. So basically, you can really minimize stuff. It's really developer stuff. But there's also now in the Auth0 ambassador, there's going to be some training on it too. So I'm going to see it again. On the ambassador note, so I have been awarded another ambassadorship. Yes, I mean, it was like, well, it wasn't a surprise, but well, it was. I mean, I applied for it, so I got it. But for traffic, so traffic, the reason why, well, I've been using traffic a lot with K3S, and I really like it. And one of the things I like doing is when I like a product, I like to evangelize it. But also, when they give you these titles like a Veeam Legend or a Veeam Vanguard or Auth0 Ambassador or Calico Ambassador, now Traffic Ambassador, you feel a duty to actually learn the technology, not just, you can't walk into a party and say, oh, I'm an ambassador, and then they start asking you questions and you don't know anything, right? That's like really embarrassing. So the good thing about this is that it forces you to learn it. So I intend to really learn traffic. They have free courses, by the way. If you Google traffic courses, they have certification. Well, actually, it's not a certification. They don't give you a certificate. I'm going to tell them about that. That's one of the things I think they should change. But it's an excellent course. And traffic is really, really good. In Kubernetes, it's used for ingress. And there's all sorts of things you can do. So expect more content about that in the future. Okay, so not a very long episode. Actually, it's never a long episode because YouTube restricts me to like 15 minutes max because I'm on the free plan, as usual. Maybe someday I'll be a paid plan. So remember, Kube Vanguard does still exist, that channel. If you Google it, you can find it. It's just that I can't access it now. I couldn't switch. Maybe someone knows how. I looked into it, and you have to have a special, you have to have a branded account. And I saw dollar signs. I think I explained this last time. I think I saw dollar signs, so I walked the other direction. And I just made a new account. All right, we'll see you next week on the Kube Ambassador.